Zozalapa Tashidele. Lasso Fiafula. Namaste everybody. Welcome to our channel Jhigu Economy, the only place where we talk about Nepali economy without making you feel like you accidentally got enrolled in a master's degree of economics at Kathmandu University or Tribhuvan University. My name is Sadichchha Shrestha and I'm an economist. Today we're going to be talking about the national budget. Yes, that magical yearly event where politicians open a leather briefcase like it contains nuclear launch codes, but inside it is mostly taxes, debt, and some emotional damage. Every year in Nepal, the finance minister walks into the parliament with that budget briefcase with the absolute confidence of a student who definitely did not start the assignment the night before. And the entire country reacts to it like it's the World Cup final. Businessmen go like, "What happened to the taxes?" Government employees go like, "Salary बढे कि na." Youths go like, "Visa processing fees बढ्यो भने त म अस्ट्रेलिया नै जादिनँ." And your uncle on Facebook goes like, "यो देश कहिले नि बन्दैन." So today, we're decoding the national budget in simple human language. No boring lecture energy. Just vibes, sarcasm, and mild economic anxiety. So grab your tea, coffee, or whatever keeps you stable during inflation, and let's begin. Okay, first question. What is a national budget? Simple. It's basically Nepal's giant family budget. Imagine your household. Money coming in from your salary is your revenue. Money going out for rent, groceries, school fees, and festival shopping you definitely couldn't afford is your expenditure. Now scale that up to an entire country with roads, hospitals, schools, ministries, and at least 47 different committees discussing why a road still has potholes after being repaired 19 freaking times. That's the national budget. The government basically says, here's how much money we think we'll make, here's how much money we plan to spend, and here's the absolutely terrifying amount we still need to borrow. And honestly, Nepal's budget works exactly like many Nepali households, where income is limited, expenses are unlimited, and our debt strategy is basically like "Bolierong la" or "Koneswe ka." Except because this is the government, we have to use fancy words to make it sound official. So instead of family income, we call it the revenue. Instead of paying for groceries, we call it the expenditure. And that "Bolierong la" or "Koneswe ka" pile of debt, that is officially known as financing the fiscal deficit. A fiscal deficit is what economists call it when your expenditure is way bigger than your revenue, which, let's be honest, happens every single year in Nepal. It's the massive gapping crater between what the government wants to spend and what it actually has in its pocket. Now, let's go back in time. Nepal's first national budget was presented on February 4, 1952, covering March 1951 to February 1952, which was 2008 Bikram Sambat. And since then, things have mostly settled into a much more reassuring rhythm from mid July to mid July. And the total budget size back then? It was only 52.5 million rupees. Yes, you heard that right. It was only rupees 52.5 million. Today, that amount would barely cover one road project, two consultancy reports, and three inauguration ceremonies with giant flower garlands. That historic first budget was presented through Radio Nepal by Finance Minister Subarna Shamsher Rana. Since then, Nepal's budgeting system has evolved from "we should maybe build a country" to "we should maybe coordinate between federal, provincial, and local governments without everybody blaming each other. Let's dig into the nuts and bolts. There are three main pillars as to how this machine is funded. Pillar one consists of revenues and grants, which is where the money comes from. Running a country is very expensive. You think that your electricity bill is painful? Well, try funding an entire government bureaucracy. The revenue comes from three distinct buckets. Bucket one consists of taxes, which is the government's main salary. This is the money collected from businesses and from you. Congratulations. You are the content creator funding this entire nation. There are three different kinds of taxes. The first one is an income tax, which is a slice taken directly from your paycheck. Every payday, the government quietly enters your account and goes like, "Namaste, we'll take this." Big businesses like banks and telecoms also pay a heavy 30% tax on their profits. Then we have the value added tax, also known as VAT. This is a tax that's added to almost everything you buy in Nepal, and it's locked at a flat 13% rate. You buy shampoo, you gotta pay VAT. You buy pizza, you gotta pay VAT. You buy an iPhone cover from an Instagram store that ends up looking like a chewy plastic. Well, that's VAT plus 13% extra regret. It's the ultimate financial jump scare. You see a plate of momo on a menu for rupees 200. But when the bill arrives, it's suddenly rupees 226 because of the VAT. So you mathematically cannot escape it. The final one is custom duties. This is essentially a border tax on imported goods, which explains why in Nepal a laptop costs one kidney and an iPhone costs two kidneys. Moving on to bucket two. It consists of non tax revenue, which is the government side hustle. These are the administrative fees, passport fees, tourist visas, driving license renewals, royalties, and traffic fines. Basically, every time you fill out a form at a government office and a guy looks at you and tells you, "त्यहाँ उता गएर receipt काट्नु पर्यो," that right there is a non tax revenue. It's the money you pay just for the absolute privilege of standing in the long queue for several hours at the head office, only to be told that the system is down because it rained a little bit in Lalitpur. Moving on to bucket three, it consists of foreign grants, which essentially is free money. Sometimes countries like Japan, India, and China, or even organizations like the UN, help Nepal with grants. A grant is amazing because it's basically here's the money, you don't have to return it, which, financially speaking, is the sexiest sentence on earth. It's the geopolitical equivalent of eating a massive plate of momo, and the guy at the next table says, "Don't worry, bruh, I got you." Except that this guy is a foreign ambassador smiling in front of a giant banner. Almost every water tanker or ambulance in this country has a giant sticker on it reading, "Gift from the people of Japan" or "Donated by the government of India." Hey, for free money though. They could print the donor country's flag directly on my forehead and I'd still say, "Thank you, pass the cash." Now we're going to be talking about pillar two, which consists of expenditure, which is where the money goes. So, where does all this money go? Short answer, everywhere. It's split into major categories. The first one is recurrent expenditure, which is the daily running costs of the government. Salaries for civil servants, pensions, office supplies, and social security allowances. Basically, keeping the government machine alive. It also includes fiscal transfers sent to provincial and local levels. Because Nepal is a federal country now, it means that our problems are more democratically distributed. Then we have the capital expenditure, which is the development spending on physical assets, such as building roads, airports, hydropower, hospitals, and schools. Or as many Nepalis know it by its official, culturally sacred moniker, Asare Bikas. Oh, yes, the absolute pinnacle of engineering comedy. For our international viewers, Asar is the final month of the Nepali fiscal year, falling right between June and July, and Vikas means development. So, for the first 11 months of the year, the capital budget sits completely frozen, untouched, hidden away like your mom's expensive guest dinner set. But then, as soon as the month of Asar arrives, the monsoon rain starts pouring down like a waterfall, and suddenly, boom, the government experiences a spiritual awakening and throws billions of rupees at contractors. Moving on to pillar three, which consists of fiscal deficit. When government spending becomes bigger than the government revenue, that's your fiscal deficit. Normal people say, paisa pugena, and the government finances this deficit by borrowing money in two different ways. First is domestic borrowing. Borrowing inside Nepal from banks and citizens by selling treasury bills and development bonds. It's basically the state saying, "Can I borrow money? Trust me, bro." It's an institutional, multi tiered trust me, bro. And you know what? We can actually trust them, bruh. Because here's a fascinating, statistically proven fact. Despite decades of political shakeups and our economy being held together by duct tape and remnants, the government of Nepal has never ever defaulted on its debt, not even once. If they sell you a short term treasury bill, which is a short term IOU lasting 28 days up to a year, like a friend saying, "Bruh, I forgot my wallet. Can you pay for the Momo? I'll e save you tonight." They actually will e save you tonight. And if you buy a long term development bond, the central bank pays you down to the exact microsecond. The drinking water pipes in Kathmandu might be bone dry, but the liquidity in the debt service department is flowing like the Koshi River during monsoon. Your money is safer with the central bank than it is inside the tin of ghee inside your kitchen. Second, we have the external borrowings. Nepal borrows from international heavyweights like the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. The good news, because Nepal is a developing country, these are concessional loans with incredibly low interest rate, often around 1%, and long repayment periods of 25 to 40 years. It's a highly polite, multi-decade financial hug from the global community. It's like borrowing from your grandparents. They just want to see you succeed. But hold on to your seats because here comes the final plot twist in the external debt horror movie: currency depreciation. Those international organizations do not lend us in Nepali rupees, they lend us in US dollars, which means we gotta pay them back in their currency. Which is terrifying because the Nepali rupee has been steadily weakening against the greenback, with the dollar climbing toward an all time high of nearly 150 rupees. This means that even if our politicians don't borrow a single extra cent, our total national debt automatically jumps up by billions of rupees just because the dollar got stronger. It is an absolute financial black magic. Exchange rate fluctuations can add an extra 116 billion rupees to our national debt burden over a single 9 month period without Nepal receiving a single extra dollar in cash. It's like borrowing $100 from your wealthy, non resident Nepali cousin. Let's call her Lumanti. When the dollar is about 100 rupees, you write down, I owe Lumanti 10,000 rupees. But years later, the dollar hits 150 rupees. Lumanti didn't change the deal, but you dynamically have to hand her 15,000 rupees. That extra 5,000 rupees you lost just by sitting on your couch, that is the exchange rate penalty. But the fantastic news is that Nepal is exceptionally good at handling this. Our spotless, default free record applies internationally too. While massive, powerful economies around the world routinely freak out the global markets by threatening to default on their bill, Nepal quietly sits in the corner and pays its international installments exactly on time. Now, here's the fun part. Every year on Jestha 15, which falls around May 28 or May 29, the finance minister legally presents the budget in parliament. And just for that one day, every single Nepali suddenly becomes a world class economist. It's an absolute cultural phenomenon. People who literally failed accounting in class 11, people who still cannot calculate their own change when they go to buy a packet of milk, suddenly log on to X and Facebook and aggressively start posting, this budget is totally useless, the government has no idea how to run the country, and this plan is going to completely ruin the economy. Calm down, Yachu. You sell customized phone cases on Instagram, and your dad still pays your mobile recharge bill. But you can't really blame them because Jisha 15 is the ultimate day for financial cosplay. The entire country drops everything to watch the finance minister walk up the steps of parliament holding a leather briefcase like it contains a top secret manuscript. And the budget isn't just one document. Oh, no, no, no. It's an entire cinematic universe. The budget document comprises of five key components. The first one is the economic survey, which is basically Nepal's annual report card. It covers the overall economic, social, and physical development status of the country for the first 8 months of the current fiscal year. Second, we have the Appropriation Act. This gives legal permission to spend money. Without this law, the government legally cannot touch a single rupee in the national treasury. It's like trying to stop your friend from grabbing a momo before everyone else has sat down at the table. Third, we have the Finance Act. This is the document that makes tax changes legal. It decides whether your next motorbike, beer, or imported gadget becomes affordable, expensive, or emotionally devastating. Fourth, we have the Debt Raising Act, which gives permission to borrow money, because apparently saying loan lere chalauna also works at the state level. Finally, we have the Medium Term Expenditure Framework, abbreviated as MTEF, which sounds incredibly complicated, but basically it means we swear we have a long term plan, which means that the MTEF actually has a real job to do. It's a 3 year rolling plan that forces the government to think ahead, acting as a legal anchor to ensure that if the administration promises a massive long term project today, they've actually legally mapped out how to pay for it for the next 2 years instead of just winging it. So, while we can finally trust that the policy rules won't change every 6 months, the MTEF is still a bit like buying a gym membership in January and confidently writing down, by 2029, I'll have a six pack and absolute financial peace. Now, before you panic and think, can the government just borrow infinite money forever? No. There are strict borrowing limits because otherwise every country would operate like you only live once, print more debt. In Nepal, we have actual legal guardrails to keep the economy safe. First, for domestic borrowing, the ceiling is set every single year by the National Natural Resources and Fiscal Commission. They look at the economy and basically tell the finance minister, listen, bro, you can borrow up to around 5% of our GDP from the local market this year. It is the institutional equivalent of your parents locking the fridge so that you don't eat all the cheese in one night. Second, For external debt, the rules are even stricter under our Public Debt Management Act, which legally dictates a hard mathematical cap on our total outstanding foreign debt relative to our previous year's GDP. That is exactly one third. And there you have it, the Nepali national budget decoded: how the government earns money, spends money, and somehow still needs to borrow more money to fill the gap. So, next time you hear politicians debating the budget on TV, you'll finally understand what's happening, or at least enough to confidently argue with your relatives during festivals. And don't forget, the official budget presentation happens on Jestha 15, which happens to be May 29 this year. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications because we'll be dropping a massive real time breakdown explaining exactly who benefits, who suffers, what became expensive, and whether your dreams of buying a new vehicle are officially dead or alive. Until then, stay informed, stay skeptical, and please pay your taxes. Apparently, the government really wants them. Bye.